Okay, so again, good afternoon to both of you, Jo Marie and Afriel. So welcome to our 5 p.m. session in horticulture, science 2. So for this session, we're going to discuss in continuation of our prelim module about photosynthesis and respiration, but this for this meeting we'll just focus on photosynthesis. So I already posted this in our Facebook group. Now, so just watch out for the links that I have posted. And last time we have discussed about the classification of vegetables. So we will continue on the classification of what do you call that? Fruits and ornamentals during the midterm na. So before we proceed with the video presentation, medyo nag-ulan ng good dere. How about diha sa inyo, Jo Marie o April? So hina.
Wala, ma'am.
Wala?
Wala, ma'am.
Wala po, ma'am.
Medyo hina kaya ang signal. So anyway, we will talk about photosynthesis. So I know you have already heard the word photosynthesis many times already. So what can you say, or for you, what is photosynthesis? Anyone? Jo Marie, April, or Gypsy? What is photosynthesis for you? In just your own understanding, April, yes. April? Wala siguro anong si April. So anyway, in short, I always say that photosynthesis is the food making process by plants, but that doesn't mean that only plants are capable of photosynthesis. There are some bacteria and fungi or fungi that are capable of photosynthesis, but mainly we source out our food from plants, no? Which are the main autotrophs. So you will learn later what are autotrophs. So first, photosynthesis, it refers to anabolic or small molecules combined, and also endergonic or stores energy, and also carbon dioxide requiring process that uses light energy, or what we call them photons, and water or H2O to produce organic macromolecules like glucose. So this is actually the very famous na equation of photosynthesis, no? We have 6 carbon dioxide plus 6 water with the presence of photons from sunlight and also by chlorophyll. The plants produce glucose or C6H12O6 and release oxygen. 6 oxygen. So I hope you can at least memorize this equation, no? Because this is very important or very standard. So if you know the chemical
doon.
glucose.
Saan daw? President Office.
Hi, Sir Jay.
Ay, sorry po.
Ano,
Sorry, ma'am. Pasensya na po. Sorry po sa ano. I-off ko lang, sorry.
No, it's alright. Maliit na bagay. So I'll just check our attendance for at this moment. No. Okay. So again, photosynthesis equation is this one. But before I proceed to the next question, where does photosynthesis takes place? I would like to direct you to a video presentation regarding photosynthesis. So we will start with this is known as the photosynthesis phases, light reaction, carbon cycle, and electron transport. So in this link, I already posted this in our Facebook group. Hi, Charles. And you will learn that if does photosynthesis requires light for it to occur, yes or no. So you will learn that after seeing this video presentation, and you will also answer the question whether does photosynthesis takes place with or without light. So kanina sa ating formula, we have known that in photosynthesis, plants use the photons or energy from the sun to convert water and carbon dioxide into glucose. Okay, so does it mean that photosynthesis do not occur without light? Yes or no? So let's try to watch this to answer the question.
To grow, they need inputs of carbon dioxide, water, and energy. The chemical process by which plants use these resources to manufacture glucose, the building blocks of plants, is called photosynthesis. In the process, oxygen gas is produced as a byproduct. The energy for photosynthesis originates in the sun and arrives at the earth as sunlight. This light has both a wave and a particle nature. The particles, or photons, are the smallest units of light. Photons oscillate along a path, which is measured as wavelengths. The light emitted from the sun contains photons in a wide spectrum of wavelengths, called the electromagnetic spectrum. Photosynthetic organisms use only a small portion of the electromagnetic spectrum, called visible light. Photosynthetic organisms contain pigments that facilitate the capture of wavelengths of light in the visible light range. The color of the pigment comes from the wavelengths of light reflected. Plants appear green because they reflect yellow and green wavelengths of light. Red and blue wavelengths of light are absorbed by these pigments and provide the energy that is used for photosynthesis. Within eukaryotic photosynthetic organisms, also known as photoautotrophs, the chemical reactions of photosynthesis occur within plant cells in specialized structures known as chloroplasts. Photosynthesis consists of two sets of reactions, the light-dependent reactions and the Calvin cycle. Within the chloroplast are small disc-like structures called thylakoids, which are surrounded by a fluid-filled space called the stroma. The reactions that synthesize glucose, the Calvin cycle, occur in the stroma. The light-dependent reactions occur in the thylakoid. It is here that conversion of light energy to chemical energy is initiated. In most photosynthetic organisms, thylakoids contain pairs of photosystems, called photosystem 1 and photosystem 2, that work in tandem to produce the energy that will later be used in the stroma to manufacture sugars. The photosystems of the thylakoid consist of a network of accessory pigment molecules and chlorophyll, the molecules that absorb the photons of light. Within the pigment molecules, the absorbed light energy excites electrons to a higher state. Photosystems will channel the excitation energy gathered by the pigment molecules to a reaction center chlorophyll molecule, which will then pass the electrons to a series of proteins located on the thylakoid membrane. Photons of light strike photosystems 1 and 2 simultaneously. We will examine what happens with the photons striking photosystem 2 first. The energized electrons are passed from the reaction center of photosystem 2 to an electron transport chain. The electrons lost by photosystem 2 are replaced by a process called photolysis, which involves the oxidation of a water molecule, producing free electrons and oxygen gas. While this oxygen gas is a byproduct of photosynthesis, it is an important input to the cellular respiration pathways. As electrons pass through the electron transport chain, The energy from the electron is used to pump hydrogen ions from the stroma to the thylakoid, creating a concentration gradient. This gradient powers a protein called ATP synthase, which phosphorylates ADP to form ATP. The low-energy electrons leaving photosystem 2 are shuttled to photosystem 1. Within photosystem 1, low-energy electrons are re-energized and are passed through an electron transport chain where they are used to reduce the electron carrier NADP+ to NADPH. When the chloroplast is receiving a steady supply of photons, NADPH and ATP molecules are rapidly being provided to the metabolic pathways in the stroma. Therefore, the ATP and NADPH formed during the light-dependent reactions are used in the stroma to fuel the Calvin cycle reactions. The Calvin cycle consists of a series of reactions that reduce carbon dioxide to produce the carbohydrate glyceraldehyde 3-phosphate. The cycle consists of 3 steps, the first of which is carbon fixation. In this step, carbon dioxide is attached to ribulose 1,5-bisphosphate, resulting in a 6-carbon molecule that splits into 2 3-carbon molecules. The second step is a sequence of reactions using electrons from NADPH and some of the ATP to reduce carbon dioxide. In the final step, ribulose 1,5-bisphosphate is regenerated. For every 3 turns of the cycle, 5 molecules of glyceraldehyde 3-phosphate are used to reform 3 molecules of ribulose 1,5-bisphosphate. The remaining glyceraldehyde 3-phosphate is then used to make glucose, fatty acids, or glycerol. It takes 2 molecules of glyceraldehyde 3-phosphate to make 1 molecule of glucose phosphate. Thus, the Calvin cycle has to run 6 times to produce 1 molecule of glucose. These molecules can remove their phosphate and add fructose to form sucrose, the molecule plants use to transport carbohydrates throughout their system. Glucose phosphate is also the starting molecule for the synthesis of starch and cellulose. Plants produce sugars to use as storage molecules and structural components for their own benefit. By utilizing the energy of the sun, along with inputs of water and carbon dioxide, plants act as glucose factories. Photosynthetic organisms are the primary producers of glucose on the planet. They also produce oxygen gas as a byproduct, and thus serve as the foundation of life, providing food and oxygen for the complex food webs on both land and in the oceans.
Okay, so that's it about the wait lang ha. About the photosynthesis in terms of different phases. So going back doon sa ating PowerPoint presentation, now where does the photosynthesis occur? Therefore, saan mag-occur yung ating photosynthesis? Definitely in the, of course, in the leaves, no? So, as you can see here, as I just mentioned earlier, autotrophs means any organism, but mostly are plants, which produce their own food, like glucose. So they in a process called photosynthesis. So mainly, yung ating photosynthesis occur in the leaves, and it has been shown on the video presentation. And specifically doon sa kanilang stoma or pores, This is where the exchange of gases and water occurs. And then doon kasi sa mesophyll cells, yung chloroplast. So this is the green pigment. So as you can see here, this is the stomata pores in the plant's cuticle, wherein yung ating water vapor and gases exchanges are taking place between the plant and the atmosphere. Ayan, the carbon dioxide. So merong stomata and merong guard cells, no? And these are found under the side of the leaves. So ito yung mesophills with chloroplast, which are green. So photosynthesis definitely occur on the mesophyll cell inside the chloroplast, where this is the organelle where photosynthesis takes place. So these are thylakoid stalks connected to each other, which contain the membranes, inner and outer, the stroma, and the granum. So this grana make up the inner membrane, no? Or the thylakoid. So why are plants green? Because of the chlorophyll molecules, no? Located in the thylakoid membranes, and each chlorophyll has magnesium ion in the center, and these pigments are the one which harvest energy or photons by absorbing certain wavelengths. So kanina nakita niyo sa photo yung mga wavelengths, no? The blue 420 nanometer and red 660 nanometer. These are the visible light, nung yung nakikita natin na sunlight, although dili yun na exactly blue ang makita natin, no? But then, in this range, these are the blue to red colors. And you can see mamaya, I also have here a wavelength, kung ano yung mga wavelength na, functions ng mga wavelengths. And plants are green because yung green wavelength is reflected, not absorbed. No? Unlike dito sa mga this is the chlorophyll A. So meron din tayong chlorophyll B, which is magkaiba lang ng structure. So this is the wavelength that I'm talking about. So longer wave are the visible light that includes this from 400 to 700 nanometer. Ito yung visible light or wavelength or yung may biological function sa atin. Shorter than this, yung mga UV rays and mga radioactive na mga radiation na like X-rays, gamma rays, which can be harmful also to living organisms like us. And longer waves like radio waves, no? It's so amazing kasi sumpay lang ang light sa mga sound. So yung mga radio waves, yung FM, AM, FM radio are part of the wavelengths, no? There are just like 800 to 1,000 nanometer, no? So the absorption of light by chlorophyll, as shown here on the figure, mostly chlorophyll absorbs the blue, violet, red light, no? So as you can see, yung blue, violet are very high than the green, and also the yellow and orange is greater than the green. Kaya ang tingin natin sa mga leaves are green. Now, before we answer this question, let's watch another video showing the different types of photosynthesis or plants based on photosynthesis, no? Yung types based on photosynthesis. Okay, so
Photosynthesis is the process by which plants capture the energy of the sun to make carbohydrates. There are minor variations in how plants do this, depending on the environment in which the plant lives. In this tutorial, we'll look at the differences between the three types of photosynthesis. 3. Before photosynthesis, except if the timing of the process changes. During plant photosynthesis, CO2 is taken out during the night and spit out of the ovum and is fixed into a 4-carbon atom. It's then stored into wavelength as an intermediate molecule as the Ecocyclic is made. Photosynthesis drier continents that involves hence for photosynthesis. A great example of a plant is let's do a quick review. During CO2 photosynthesis, CO2 is taken up and transported directly to the carbon cell. This 4 pathway alters the location of photosynthesis, and the 10 pathway changes the time. Both of these adaptations allow some plants to survive in environments that are less than ideal due to the missing pathway.
Okay, so that's it. Let me just go back here. So these are the different types of, so these are the different types ng ating, wait lang. I need the caption kasi yeah. So these are the different types, okay, ng plants based on kanyang photosynthesis. So, have you heard the C3, C4, and CAM plants before? Nakadog na mo, ane? Yes,
Crop
adore.
science man.
Yes, very good sa inyuhang ano no, sa inyuhang
Crop science.
crop science. So, yung
Yes.
yeah, because this is just a review anyway. So, yung C3 are the most plants that we are almost all, lahat ng crops natin are C3 plants because they usually follow the usual process of photosynthesis. But when it comes to C4 plants like corn, they have adaptation. In fact, here, they have bundle sheet cell. Nakita nyo kanina sa video, yung structure ng bundle sheet cell, which makes the carbon cycle or the Calvin cycle production ng carbon is more efficient kasi meron pa siyang bundle sheet cells. But in the case ng crassulacean acid metabolism, it's different kasi like for cactus, no, or lahat ng mga nasa plants in the succulents na nasa dry environments like desert or yung sa desierto, we have dahil nga, if they open their stomata during day, mainit masyado, so they will lose a lot of water and gases. So they always close their stomata during daytime. So, and open their stomata during nighttime. Therefore, yung kanilang ang carbon dioxide can only be captured or absorbed by plants during nighttime. And kaya baliktad ang nangyayari, the Calvin cycle process is done during daytime. No? So the question kanina, which is, does it possible, although we all know that photosynthesis requires light to take place, no, to produce glucose. But then, it doesn't mean that without light, photosynthesis does not occur. Of course, photosynthesis have phases. We have the light-dependent and light-independent phase. Now, which means photosynthesis can still occur even without light. No? During, in the case nga ng CAM, during daytime, during nighttime, mag-harvest sila ng carbon dioxide, and then during daytime, baliktad siya, no? Yun na ang process ng photosynthesis. But the usual way actually is during day, usually nangyayari ang photosynthesis, and throughout, kasi nag-harvest sila ng photons from sunlight. So I guess that's clear. And going back doon sa ating PowerPoint presentation, no? So we have here the question. We have here the question. Ano nangyayari during fall? Yung in some other places kasi they have summer, winter, spring, and fall, no? So yung leaves ay nag-change ng color. If you notice sa mga temperate areas, maganda tingnan pag fall time. Kasi from green, they become colorful. So ano yung nangyayari dito? So as we have known that the green chlorophyll pigments which absorb the green color, will be reduced during fall, no? So therefore, revealing the other pigments. So we have two other pigments actually. Wait lang ha. Can you get up na lang in the room? So again, we have two other pigments which are responsible for some other colors such as the red, the orange, and yellow. So these are the carotenoids pigments, while the anthocyanins pigment are responsible for the red and purple. And the same true with all the fruits and vegetables ng color, no? Like eggplant, purple man siya. So it has the anthocyanin pigment. Okay. Now, you have seen kanina what happens inside the leaves, the chlorophyll, the thylakoid. So all the processes that happening in the photosystem 1 and 2 are governed by the reduction oxidation reaction. So what is reduction? Re for reduction or the gain of electrons, and dox for oxidation. Ox for oxidation or the loss of energy. As you can see here, baliktad siya, no? Kung reduce, it means makuhaan, but it's the opposite, meaning it's the gain of electrons. Kasi when we say reduction, therefore, it gains electrons para ma-form ang ATP. So usually this is what happens in photosynthesis. So we have time limits, 10 minutes na lang taha. So if ever we run out of time, so you can go back on the link if you have further questions. But if you don't have any more questions, then you are free to go na after the time limit. But before that, let me just check the attendance. So I will also go back to the link to answer your question, and then the rest of the topic will be continued by next meeting. No? So again, redox reaction or the transfer of one or more electrons from one reactant to another. So this was explained well during the video presentation. So you can just, yung kaninang 12 nun pala na nagmamadali man ko na umuwi kanina kasi baka matraffic na ko, malate na ko. So, nakalimtan nun na ako kung kanang upload ang katong 12 noon na session. So bukas ko na lang i-upload. But this session will be uploaded immediately after the class. So you can watch out or review the videos. So I also send the link in the Facebook group. So if you want only to study the link. So again, the oxidation reaction or the loss of electrons from a substance or the gain of oxygen. So in this case, this is oxidation kasi there is loss of electrons and therefore oxygen is gained. But in this case, this is reduction because there is gain of electrons. So yung ito, nag-reduce siya into ang carbon dioxide is reduced to glucose kasi nag-gain siya ng electron but it lost oxygen. Okay. So medyo libog siya because of the reduction, but just remember na ang word na reduction is gain siya of electrons but malos iyahang oxygen. But sa oxidation, malos ang electrons but mag-gain ang oxygen. From water, mag-gain siya ng oxygen. But here, from carbon dioxide, mag-gain siya ng glucose. So why do cells use for energy? Why do cells use for energy? So bakit sunlight yung ultimate energy for all life on Earth? Okay, so can you imagine without the sun, if ever mawala ang sun, so what happens to all the living organisms, including the humans? No? Wala, no? Mawala. Plants store energy in the chemical bands of sugar, and the chemical energy is released as adenosine triphosphate during cellular respiration. But we will be discussing cellular respiration further in our next topic. So, yung ATP is adenosine triphosphate at ito yung ginagamit natin na energy. Yung energy sa katawan natin is ATP. And this is composed of mga nitrogen bases called the adenine or the pentose 5C, sugar, ribose, and 3 phosphate groups. So, yung last na phosphate group is bonded with high energy chemical bond. And this bond can be broken para ma-release yung energy para gumagamit ng cells in plants and also including animals. So removing a phosphate from ATP or breaking the last phosphate band from ATP will again release energy for use and will form na the ADP or adenosine diphosphate and produce free phosphate group. So this is what the high energy phosphate band looks like. As you can see, we have ATP, ribose, and adenine. And free phosphate can be reattached again to ADP para ma-form na naman ang ATP in the process called phosphorylation. So in phosphorylation, you can see here in the figure the cycle of recycle of energy, from sunlight or from food and into energy available for cellular work and for chemical synthesis. So what are the parts of photosynthesis? As I have said, meron tayong light reaction or light-dependent reaction photosynthesis. And this is the time where the plants, through the chlorophyll, will harvest the energy from solar power cold photons in the form of ATP and NADPH. But in the second phase or part, yung Calvin cycle kanina, yung nagkakaiba-iba ng mga C3, C4, and compounds, or the light independent reaction, also called carbon fixation or C3 fixation, since C3 yung kanyang yung kanyang carbon. And this uses energy ATP and NADPH from light reaction para gumawa ng glucose. And it is in the second process where glucose is produced. So in the light reaction again, there's an electron flow occurs in the thylakoid membranes, and this is done during light reaction where two possible routes are called cyclic electron flow and the non-cyclic electron flow. So ano itong cyclic electron flow? This again occurs in the thylakoid and uses the photosystem 1 only, and with the P700 reaction center na may chlorophyll A, and uses the electron transport chain, which generates ATP, no, from ADP phosphate to ATP. And in the cyclic electron flow, again, this is what is shown here, no? Where pigments absorb light energy in the photosystem 1 and excite the electrons. Ma-excited siya sa P700 of chlorophyll A, and this will produce the ATP by electron transport chain. In the non-cyclic electron flow, baby, it occurs in the thylakoid membrane too, but this time it's already in the photosystem 2 and also photosystem 1. So it's in the P680 reaction center, chlorophyll A, and P700 chlorophyll A, and uses the ETC again to generate the oxygen, ATP, and NADPH. So you can see here in the figure from the sun harvesting so nauna, as you can see, nauna ang photosystem 2 kaysa photosystem 1 in the figure. And why does it so? It's because the scientists have discovered the photosystem 2 first before the photosystem 1. Kaya yan ang kanilang model. So in here, the water is split into photosystem 2 and ATP is made, while the energy carrier NADPH is made in photosystem 1. No? So ma-split ang water dere and ma-produce ang ATP sa photosystem 2 and here na sa photosystem 1 and ADPH na. Both are very important in the source of energy. So again, in the non-cyclic electron flow, we have ATP and ADPH, and oxygen comes from splitting of water and not carbon dioxide. And we have the so-called chemiosmosis, no? So we have 1 minute left. So, but we will just discuss maybe the last slide. So which chemiosmosis is the one which powers ATP synthesis, and this again takes place in the thylakoid membrane. So nakita niyo na kanina kung anong picture ng ating thylakoid, and this uses the electron transfer chain again and the ATP synthase enzyme. So in here, the hydrogen move down their concentration gradient through channels of ATP synthase, forming ATP from ADP. So in the chemiosmosis, ito yung mga events, no? So therefore, ATP ang ma-produce dito. So this is what is chemiosmosis, no? So again, from the sun, nag-proton pumping siya, and ang ADP ay naging ATP. So this is the chemiosmosis. So I guess we will proceed with Calvin cycle na by next meeting. So do you have any questions or clarifications before ma-end na ang ating 1 minute? Do you have any questions or clarifications, everyone?